Morning everyone, so this video today is for Eduqas English Literature Component 2 and we are looking at Christmas Carol, so the 19th century novel or text, and in this video we're going to be doing a very quick overview of the paper and this question, what previous questions have come up and therefore what might come up. It's very difficult to make predictions for the 19th century novel because they're chunky texts, a little bit like Shakespeare, but I'll give it my best go, and then how to answer the question. So firstly, you need to remember that this is your longest paper for English. It may in fact be your longest paper overall. It's 2.5 hours and therefore you need to plan your time and your energy really carefully. You're going to be writing 4 essays in total, so one on your modern text, mostly that's in Spectacles, one on your 19th century text, we're looking at Christmas Carol, and then your 2 unseen poetry answers. So you need to think about how you're going to stay focused, how you're going to maintain your energy, because each of those questions requires you to be very, very, very on it. All right, so there are 3 sections, section A, section B, which we're looking at today, and then section C, which is the unseen poetry. One of the benefits of Eduqas is that it's exactly the same format for section A and section B in terms of how the questions are set and how they're answered. So if you're doing Inspector Calls and Christmas Carol, then you are revising the same exam method, the same answer method, and that really helps you with that. Again, I've just put the big list of texts on there. Don't end up being distracted by the ones that you haven't studied. Go straight to the page for your questions. So as a reminder for Christmas Carol, then you get an extract and a question, and you answer one question, one essay, writing about the whole text with the extract together. The only difference between Christmas Carol and Inspector Calls is that there are context marks for Christmas Carol. So the exam questions tend to follow a format of being about either characters, themes or ideas, events that are maybe important, and or feelings. So these are the previous questions that we've had, and you can see there that we are looking at the same issue that we have with Inspector Calls, where we will see questions being repeated in some format. So we've had 2 questions that are essentially about the ghosts and supernatural. We've had 2 questions that are essentially about Christmas and 2 questions that are essentially about Scrooge. You could argue that the other 2 questions, the Cratchits and Poverty and the Poor, are also very similar thematically. So because you're writing about the whole novel in one answer, it's worth remembering that there are some characters who will not be named in a question. So for example, they will not ask you to write only about one of the ghosts. So they won't ask you to write only about the Ghost of Christmas Future because he only appears in Stave 4. They won't ask you to write about Fezziwig. So when you're doing your revision of some of these characters, you're revising them for the influence and significance that they have in that moment. Even though Scrooge came up as the question in 2024, it is very important that you still plan your answer on Scrooge, because Scrooge's change, his transformation across the novel, is the most important thing in Christmas Carol, and therefore you will need to be talking about it in some way. Let's not forget the extracts then. So the extracts that we've seen already are almost all of the key moments in Stave 1. So we've had the charity collectors and Fred and 2 bits from Marley's Ghost. Then we've had something from Stave 2, 3 and 5. Note then that we haven't had anything from Stave 4 at all yet, and that might be one to look at. So that is the Ghost of Christmas Future, but there are also some really key moments in the text that haven't come up yet. And remember, the requirement for choosing the extract is that it is a moment of change, and obviously Scrooge has all of these small moments of realization as he goes through his journey, and therefore there are loads that Eduqas could select. So some of the ones that I might expect to come up in the next few years are here, and I have then allocated them some of the themes that I think they might choose. I've not done characters because I think the character list is relatively small. You're looking at Scrooge, you're looking at the ghosts, you're looking at the Cratchits, because they appear in all of the staves or most of the staves. Probably you're limited on that in terms of characters, so we're looking at revising themes. And if I was thinking about something coming up from stave 4, then I might consider the extract where it describes the death of Tiny Tim, or I might consider the extract where Scrooge sees his own gravestone. However, all of those are really good to look at, to revise, because they're key moments in the text. You're going to want to revise them anyway. So all you're doing when you look at them with these kind of themes is that you're revising them with purpose. And I would always choose to plan an essay for something that I would hate to come up, so that I'm well prepared. So what does answering the question look like then? So for any of you that have watched my other videos, you will probably have seen this breadth and depth image before, and that is just a reminder that for Eduqas, they want you to be able to cover off the breadth, all of the key moments in the timeline of whatever text you're writing about. And then for some of those key moments that you're talking about, they want you to analyse, go deep with some of the writer's language and structure and form elements that they're using. So it's the same method as you've seen me say for Inspector Calls. You're going to read the question, you're going to underline, highlight the topic, then you're going to look at the extract and you're mentally going to put it in the chronology of the text. So for Christmas Carol, that would be identifying which stave it comes from. You're going to go through the extract and choose at least 3 quotes that you're going to write about, remembering that you need to choose quotes that come from the beginning, middle and end of the extract, so you've covered the whole of that. Then you're going to mentally plan or bullet point on the exam paper your whole answer, and I've got an example of this at the end of the video. So think about the fact that you're going to want to have something from staves 1 to 5. You're going to want to have at least 1 quote from each stave that you go deep with, and you're going to want to think about how the question topic is presented in each of the key moments of the story. You're going to want to include Dickens's purpose or message, because that enables you to link to context, and you're going to want to think about how readers might respond. So what are those key moments that you're going to be aiming to name check or deal with or discuss in your essay? So here is what I would consider to be my list, and I've summarised them really quickly. And if you go through each of the staves, then this will be a reminder for you of what they are. There is a lot, although in general it's broken into all of the little scenes that exist in the story, and that's one of the reasons why both Inspector Calls and Christmas Carol are really nice exam texts, because the stories are written in these kind of little mini moments. So let's take stave 4 for example. Start off with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, so the description of him being very much like death. Then you've got quite a long section where lots of people are talking about a dead man, and Scrooge doesn't really know who this dead man is, and the reader is putting together that that is actually Ebenezer Scrooge. And lots of people are reacting to the death of the dead man in a variety of ways that shows that no one cared about him. Then you have Tiny Tim's death. Then you have the revelation where Scrooge sees his own gravestone. So each of those things that happen in stave 4 are key moments that you're going to want to deal with. So you're going to think about those key moments and which ones are the best for you to pick your quotes to analyse and talk about Dickens's use of language. And then you're going to want to think about what context are you going to use. And I've just given you the key kind of overview list of the context that you should have studied. And there are tons of videos on YouTube that you can go and find to help you revise those. So then what might that look like? So I have given you, and this isn't on my list, but this is, if you've done the 2024 paper for Macbeth, you will have written this question for Macbeth. What characters do you have most sympathy for and why? And I thought that's a really good question to prepare for Christmas Carol. So for stave 1, I have just bullet pointed on the screen the key moments of stave 1 and whether I would choose to just have that as something that I'm name checking in my essay, or have that as something where I'm going to make sure I've got a quote and I'm analysing it. So remember, you're going the breadth through the key moments, discussing how something is shown, and then for at least one quote in each stave, you're going to do some analysis. Now, because stave 1 is so important, and that whole idea that actually we're not meant to have sympathy with Scrooge at all at the beginning, he's meant to be a dislikable character. Some might even argue that he's comically dislikable. Then I've chosen that I'm going to analyse 2 quotes from stave 1, but I'm going to keep my analysis quite brief, and then I've got some other things that I'm going to name check, and I've got another video on how to name check things that will get you the breadth marks without spending too much time. So then I've shown you here that I'm ticking off the things that I said you needed to cover in stave 1, and I would go through and do that process for the other staves. Then I would select my quotes and I would write my analysis. So let's just have a quick reminder of what the exam method is. You are reading and highlighting the question topic. Then you're going to place the extract in the chronological order of the story, and that's where you're going to write about it. So I've said here, say the extract is from stave 4, then you're going to write about it in your stave 4 paragraph. Choose your quotes from the extract, beginning, middle and end. Bullet point your plan, going through in chronological order, making sure you've decided which quotes you're going to analyse and what context you're going to use. Then you're going to write your 2-sentence introduction, which is going to be my next video, and your paragraphs. 1 paragraph per stave enables you to be really organised. All right, I hope that video was useful. Please do like and subscribe, because apparently those things help.